The following program is sponsored by the Today's Home Remodeler Television Network.
Welcome to today's Home Remodeler. I'm Stuart Keith, and on today's show, we're looking at the process for replacing a front entry door. We'll begin with our entry door specialist, Dvorak, who will walk us through the professional replacement process for a front door in an existing home. We'll then visit a state-of-the-art finishing facility to learn how steel doors can be hand-stained to look exactly like wood. And we'll finish up today's show back out at our project to see how the replacement door transforms this ordinary front entry into a beautiful focal point of the home. So we have a lot to cover today, and we'll get started after these messages. The front entryway of a home can really say a lot about its inhabitants. As visitors approach, it's what draws their eye, and it's your one chance to make a first impression. But what if your existing home has a front door that is in disrepair? What are your options? Well, on today's show, we'll tackle this dilemma and show you how to transform a bleak front entry into an eye-catching work of art by simply replacing your existing door. So let's begin with our entry door specialist, Dvorak, to learn more about the professional installation process of a replacement front door. Well, Dusty, beautiful day out here. Nice neighborhood, well established, probably vintage 1920s.
Yeah, this is typical of the home for this area. Like you said, vintage 1920s. We're dealing with a fairly complicated situation here from the standpoint that we want to replace this door, yet we don't want to disturb anything on the inside. We really don't want to disturb the outside. And that's really where you run into the intense part of it on the labor end when you start trying to modify the opening to fit something.
Okay, so if someone has an older house, even a newer house with a damaged front door, maybe they have a security door like on this one, what are their options for replacing it, really giving it some curb appeal?
Well, the first thing we have to have in order to just replace the door is make sure that our frame is in good condition, which this one is. It's got a nice overhang. It really wasn't exposed to the weather, the UV rays, the water, so the frame itself is in pretty good shape. As you can see on the inside, we've got all original plaster. Now, the biggest risk you run when you're tearing out an existing frame is the plaster work falling on the inside. Now you've created a major dilemma, and it's going to take quite a bit more labor to fix than if we just replace the door and lose the storm door.
So if a homeowner has an older door, maybe it's not quite as functional, energy efficient, they want to replace it, upgrade it, they have two options. One, replacing the entire frame, or your product, which just replaces the door?
Exactly. We're just going to replace the door, and not only are we going to replace the door, we're going to make it more energy efficient. We're going to add a lot of curb appeal, and also we're going to give you something that is more security conscious than is currently here. It's no secret that you subject a steel door versus a wood door to blow test. The steel door is going to hold up much better. So we can actually get rid of this, in my opinion, unsightly security door. The thing you'll notice about the wood door, it is starting to blister. It really doesn't want to hold paint very well anymore. And when a door gets to a certain age, it retains moisture, doesn't allow you to keep a good coat of paint on it. And let's face it, paints aren't made in the same manner they were years ago, so they're just not as durable. So we want to make this maintenance free as well.
And it's probably going to be more cost effective because you're not yanking out the whole frame. So I'm anxious to see the process. Let's get out of Mike's way and see how we do it.
Great.
The first step in the process is for Mike to remove both the security and main doors. Next, the threshold is carefully removed, but the half-inch plywood filler is left in place, so the replacement door sweep will be able to clear any throw rug which the homeowners might eventually use. The existing ineffective metal weather stripping is removed, along with any nails and paint. It is extremely important to scrape and clean this area, as our replacement door will fit inside the existing rabbet. Now, although Mike makes it appear to be an easy project, there's no substitute for experience, and Dusty had some great advice for anyone considering changing out their own front door.
One of my tips is hire a professional contractor. I don't want this to be perceived as a do-it-yourselfer project. It does take some skill, and again, it's a project you have to take your time. Make sure you're not going to, wreck the authentic casing or the existing sill, and you need to take your time and make sure that you have somebody that knows how to properly measure and make sure the opening is what it's supposed to be, so that when your door gets here, it fits properly.
And as I watch Mike meticulously cutting away and working around the corners, I think of the alternative of tearing this out, and as you mentioned earlier with the plaster walls, what a mess that would be. This is relatively clean. Sure, there's a little bit of touch-up, but think of the end result. You're going to get to keep the original casing, match everything up, and you're going to have a beautiful front entryway.
And I've been in applications before where the existing frame was taken out, and I've watched the plaster fall from above the header, and then you've got a whole nother set of issues there, and it's difficult to find somebody that can match that plaster exactly without looking like a repair job.
As Mike continued to prep the opening, Dusty brought me up to speed with what door the homeowner selected.
What they've selected is a Taylor stainable steel door, and they chose to have it finished in our walnut color. We have 8 standard finishes. And as you look at the door, you can tell that the embossing you see is actually rolled right into the steel. It gives you a lot of definition of character, and it really does look like an oak door.
It does. I mean, you're hard-pressed to realize it's steel. It's even architecturally correct with the grain of the wood running in the right directions.
I'm glad you noticed that. That is important, and that's what gives it, again, an authentic look. That's what we're after. It really does look like a wood door. We love the appearance of a wood door, but we don't necessarily like the performance of a wood door. And your choices available today are wood, fiberglass, steel, and there are some composites out there. The reason we like steel is because we know year after year it's going to perform. More security conscious product than a wood door would be, or even a fiberglass door. So that's why we choose to sell the steel product.
Well, it really makes sense, and when you think about the function or functionality of a front door, you want it to look good and you want it to perform. And by performance, you want it for security and for weatherproofing.
Weatherproofing, exactly, and this has got an R factor of approximately a 13, where your wood doors really, the R factor is negligible. I mean, you may have a 1.5 or a 2, so by doing an R factor of a 13 on a steel door, your walls, in this older home, I'm not sure how much insulation is even in the wall, but again, it's going to keep the cold air out, and that's what we're really concerned about. This door slab in this frame happens to be adjustable. If we loosen up the hinge screws, we can move this door slab up and down and in and out, and the importance of that is, again, we're dealing with a home that was built in the 1920s. That wall may not be perfectly plumb for us, but what we can do with this door slab is adjust it to make sure it fits tight to the weather seals.
Well, Dusty, we talked about how beautiful these doors look, how realistic the finish is, and we'll learn more about the finishing process next when we continue with today's Home Remodeler. As we mentioned in our last segment, entry doors allow you to make a statement with your home's first impression. And even if your existing door is in disrepair, there is a replacement solution. We had a chance to visit the Wausau Supply finishing facility, where our entry door specialist, Dusty Dvorak, gave us a first-hand look at the attention to detail that's required to turn an ordinary steel door into a stunning piece of art.
What we're doing here, Stu, is we're backing off all the debris. You got to make sure you got a clean surface. The door's already been scuffed, and really, when you're talking about paint and adhesion, it's all about getting the door scuffed so that you get a nice tight bond to the door. So it's going through the back and getting the debris sucked off of it, and now it's going into the finish booth.
Now, Dusty, consumers have a choice. They can actually get the door stock raw and paint it themselves, but as they see here, look at the attention to detail that goes in and how perfect each one comes out.
Well, as you well know, Stu, and you've done it in the past, tried to paint a door in the field, and it's virtually impossible to get a good quality finish, especially when you're using water-based paints on steel doors. With this process here, you can see it's sprayed on in a factory environment, good heavy coat of water-based paint, and this finish will also get baked on. You get as close to an automotive finish as possible using this process. You'll never replicate this in the field, and it's important to remember that. And especially when you have 79 standard colors, I mean, what would be the reason to try and do this in the field?
No kidding. And you just look at how clean it is, virtually impurity-free. And after all, the door is the entryway to your home. It's the one chance to make a good first impression.
The door is the calling card of the house.
Now, from the painting process, you said it moves on down the line?
Exactly. It moves into an oven and bakes at approximately 20 minutes. The only way to really get that finish to tighten up and lay perfectly flat is to bake that finish. And this isn't a paint that I could sell you a gallon of and you can field apply. Doesn't really work out well that way. It's made to be specifically applied the way we're doing it. You'll notice the glass frames are done separately. The whole reason for that is obviously we're dealing with a vinyl product here. If you have any movement of that frame, you know, let's face it, this is Wisconsin, Minnesota, we get some thermal expansion and contraction. We want to make sure we have color behind that glass frame if there were any movement. So that's the reason we do the glass frame separately.
Oh, so you're going to take that added precaution in a natural environment where there is going to be some movement. The consumer won't even notice it.
Exactly. Rather than taping off the glass and, you know, again, spraying it in the field and you get some movement on that frame and then you get that white halo around it,
sure.
That's unsightly and we want to make sure it's done properly.
Now, in addition to the painted products that you offer, you also have a stained option?
We do have a stained option, and in fact, we stain a great majority of the doors that leave our facility. And I'll show you why it's so popular with our customers.
Holy cow, this is actually a steel door. It looks so realistic.
That's the whole idea. What you're looking at here is a 22 gauge Taylor stainable steel door. It's a roll-formed embossed pattern in there, which you can see, so it's not something that's applied to the top. It's actually part of the door. Now, the obvious advantages, Stuart, of a steel door versus a wood or a fiberglass product are the fact that it's going to stay stable. Again, we talked about thermal bowing and warping and those types of things. That's a non-issue here when you're talking about an all-steel product. And as you can see, we can replicate it to look like wood.
It's just, I like the human touch that I'm seeing here. It's not totally automated. Sure, the cutouts were, but when you have someone that has to hand stain each one, it just adds a touch of craftsmanship to it.
The only way you're going to get this type of attention to detail, you notice that the doors are architecturally correct, and you've got certain break points which you have to follow. There's no way this can be done
here.
Right.
And how the grain would go that way, this way, just as though it's a piece of wood. Well, anyone who's even considering doing it themselves to maybe save a few dollars, just look at the craftsmanship that Jody's doing to make it look so realistic, and how carefully she's rubbing everything down and getting that almost three-dimensional feel.
Right. There is no substitute for a professionally applied finish, and Stuart, you and I are good at certain things. This is not one of my strengths. A door sold by Dusty's okay, but you wouldn't want a door stained by Dusty. It's a difficult process.
Well, I really appreciate you introducing us to the human touch to a steel door. Even though a lot of this factory is automated, it's nice to see the craftsmanship that goes into it. Thanks for taking the time to show it to us.
My pleasure, Stuart.
Painted or stained, it sure makes sense to invest in a quality factory finish. So far in today's show, we have removed the unsightly original doors from our front entryway and prepped the opening. Our entry door specialist, Dusty Dvorak, explained that the big advantage to our replacement door is that we won't need to replace the existing frame, as our replacement unit will fit inside the existing rabbet. This makes for a much quicker and cleaner replacement and allows for the reuse of the authentic interior trim. With the rough opening carefully cleaned, it's time to install our beautiful new replacement door.
Well, what Mike's going to do now is he's going to dry fit the door, and always a good idea, set it in place, make sure everything fits the way you want it to fit, and then apply your caulk to the sill and set it in that heavy bead of caulk. Hey, the door fits like a glove. Somebody obviously measured properly. Our opening's not completely square and plumb, but I tell you what, for an 80-some-year-old home, it's not too bad. Stuart, most critical point in any installation is making it water and airtight, and that's what Mike's doing right now. He's running a good heavy bead of silicone down where the sill is going to set and make sure we don't get any air infiltration or water infiltration. You know, we have a nice overhang here, but again, you get a wind-driven rain, and we just want to make sure that it's not going to get penetrated by air or water. What Mike is doing now, Stuart, is he's pinning the bottom corner, and we'll start setting our margins around the perimeter of the frame as we go here. You'll notice to use the roofing nail. The reason we do that is because we want a flat nail so that when we put our casing back over the top of this, or our trim back over the top, we don't want it to be sitting on top of a, you know, if you use a countersunk drywall screw or something, that head of it has a tendency to stick up. So that's why we're using a flat-headed nail. Now you'll notice Mike's applying some pressure, raising his jamb a little bit. He wants to make sure his margins are good. Currently you can see the light all the way around the perimeter, Stuart, but remember we have our stop with our weather strip in it that'll be applied after the fact. So once we get our margins set, then we'll apply the stop with the weather strip on the exterior. But we are looking for that 1/8 inch roughly around the perimeter. And the big thing is that they're even. We talked about the importance of fasteners. We're also running them through the side jamb as well. Now remember, this frame is made of steel, and we're always concerned about making sure that that it's a security conscious installation, and by running the longer screws through not only the hinge jamb but the strike jamb as well, we're making sure that happens.
Another thing I noticed is that when Mike gets it close to being all the way screwed in, he kind of backs off a bit. He doesn't want to, it almost seems like he's cautious not to pull that L bracket in.
Right, you don't want to over torque it, because what you start to do is you'll open your margins. Remember we talked about margins and how important it was that they remain true from top to bottom. If he over torques that screw, then again we create that bow to the side jambs, and we definitely don't want that. What we're going to do now is we're going to install a lock set. It's important to do this at this point because in order to locate our stop on the exterior, we got to make sure that that this thing is closed all the way to the point it needs to be, and then we can go ahead and put our stop on. Well, Stuart, we're getting close to finishing up on the exterior, and what Mike is doing here is locating the stop with the magnetic compression weather strip in it. And we want to slightly compress it against the door. Now remember, we got our hardware on, and we know where we want our strike located, so we're ready to go ahead and apply the stop. So we're starting on the head, and then Mike's going to work on each side.
You know what, as I look at it, I just marvel what a difference this replacement unit has made. It's just fantastic.
Well, and you talk about curb appeal and adding value to a home, and this is the focal point of the house when you look from the street. So I mean, you want to make an impact, a great area to spend a couple of dollars.
And when we talked about the different options that homeowners have in replacing their existing front entry door, what you can do is either tear out the whole frame, which is going to take you at least a day, and if you're dealing with plaster, probably more than that, and you're going to know it's been a repair job, or you can go with a nice, convenient replacement unit like this, and look at the difference. It took maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to do, and
right, a couple hours, and we've changed the whole appearance of the front of the home. And again, it looks like a wood door, but it's going to perform. It gives you all the qualities of a steel door. I mean, the insulating factor, the security factor, and you know, the beauty of wood.
as a finishing touch, Dusty added a magnetic brass look kick plate, a touch of class that will help to protect the door's finish. Well, our homeowner was elated, and I think you'll agree that the new door really improves your first impression of this home. Now here are some key points to help summarize today's show. Never underestimate the importance of your front entry. After all, it's your one chance to make a first impression. So consider your selection carefully and install a door that's built and finished with the required craftsmanship and attention to detail, which will help ensure its longevity. And if your existing door is in disrepair, consider upgrading with a steel replacement unit. As we saw today, they can fit within the existing opening, are extremely durable, energy efficient, secure, and available in a wide variety of finishes. And remember, although it may have seemed like a relatively easy project, our experienced professionals had the knowledge and tools to do the job right the first time. When replacing your front entry door, do your homework, select the right product, and hire a competent professional. Follow this simple advice, and you'll enjoy your new front entry for years to come. So we're all out of time for this week's show. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll see you again next time on today's Home Remodeler.